Welcome to all of you. Thank you for joining us today on our fourth and last day of the Journées Scientifiques. This has been a very exciting journey with you, sharing and debating. I'm still connected. Um, Please let me know. Yes, let me check. I'm checking. Okay, I'm connected. As I was saying, this is our fourth and last day on the Journées Scientifiques because this has been a very exciting journey with you, sharing and debating about science, the role of technology in global challenges, and different application of digital science and technology to solve real-world problems. We have shared dynamic sessions, conversations, and more. We have already had 3 keynotes and 13 project presentations in 4 scientific sessions and 3 successful cases in innovation developed by Inria Chile, and their partners. We shared 3 great presentations: one, enlightening the public policies available for funding and support for research, innovation, and technologies. Also, we've met closer to the Inria French-Chilean network of research, and we had a fantastic presentation of Software Heritage, which is a nonprofit multi-stakeholder initiative unveiled in 2016 by Inria and supported by UNESCO. This Journées Scientifiques Inria Chile celebrate the French-Chilean cooperation in digital science and technology. It has been also tremendously encouraging to see how scientists from transdisciplinary areas and part of the world have come together in this effort coordinated by Inria Chile to work on different projects in different areas like fighting climate change, astronomy, energy, agriculture, and so on. This Thursday, May the 12th, we'll start with a talk by the Associate Professor of the Astronomy Center of Diego Portales University, Paula Joffre. The keynote will expose a topic more linked to astronomy. She will exhibit navigating the multidimensional space-time of the Milky Way. We will have our last scientific session on models and numerical methods for complex systems. To close this day, we will have a roundtable on open science with French and Chilean representatives. We remind you all to stay connected during the coffee break. We will have an interactive activity prepared for you, an instance of networking, and the opportunity to meet our interns. Finally, if you want to interact on social media with us, you can tag us on LinkedIn and also in Twitter as Inria Chile. Now, we leave you with today's keynote speaker, Paula Joffre. During the presentation, we will be receiving questions through the chat. There are 2 chats, one general, you know this information, and one specific for questions. Please use the question chat. Paula, the floor is yours.
Hello, everyone. My name is Paula Joffre. I'm an assistant professor at the Universidad Diego Portales, and I am the director of the Millennium Nucleus ERIS. And today it is a great pleasure to give this audience this talk about astronomy. And I will focus in this talk on what we are learning and what is the state of the art in the studies around the Milky Way, and how we can benefit from the artificial intelligence revolution. So we are in a privileged place in Chile. We can look at the sky, and we have in the north of Chile very clear skies, and this is the kind of skies that we can see when we're in the north of our country. And this is a blessing we have, and because we also have the opportunity to really study and answer the questions that may arise when we look at the sky. So when we look at the sky, we may wonder, what are these stars? Where are they? Where do they come from? What are they made of? We can also see in this picture here that we have the luck, because when the southern hemisphere, to not only see here the Milky Way and all the stars, but we can also see these clouds, the Magellanic Clouds. And we can ask ourselves, what are these clouds? What do they tell us about the evolution of the Milky Way and also of the evolution of the universe? So when we look at the sky, we have essentially 3 dimensions. We have the 2 dimensions of the positions, and then a 3rd dimension, which is the brightness of the stars. Some of them are brighter and some of them are fainter, and they also contain some information because of that. we're going through a revolution when we study the sky and when we study the Milky Way, because now we are benefiting, or we're in the middle of the data arrival from the space mission Gaia. Gaia is measuring brightnesses and positions of 1 billion of stars. So this is the view of the sky, not from the north of Chile, but from Gaia, from space. And it is so many stars that you don't really see in this picture each of the stars. Although if you zoom in, each of these pictures here is an individual star, and we can start seeing actually other kind of structures in the Milky Way. In fact, we can see rather these dark regions here, which are not the stars, but this dust that is along the line of sight between us and the background. We can also see here structure in the Magellanic Clouds. So this is the second data release of Gaia, and this is what we are currently at when we look at the sky with Gaia. And Gaia is fascinating. It contains more than 1 billion brightnesses and positions and colors, and also distances and proper motions of stars, of individual stars. So now we can go from the third dimension, as I said before, from the brightness to adding 2 more dimensions, which are the colors of the stars. This is telling us something about the properties, the inner properties of all the stars. And we know that for now 1.4 billion or 1.5 billion stars. We can, as I said, we have, the stars have, we know the positions and we know the motions, so we can add further dimensions. We can add the motions in the both directions. This is why it's 2 dimensions. And what we have is a moving map. So that was before I show you the picture, but now all of the stars, they have a motion, and we can see the motions, and we can measure the motions of all the stars, of 1.4 billion stars. We can measure these motions, and we can see that the stars are moving in different directions at different speeds, and this is telling us something about what is going on with the Milky Way. We can transform the reference point of these motions not towards us as the observer, but towards the center of the galaxy. And if we assume also a gravitational potential of the galaxy, we can see the orbits of the stars, and we can see and understand how the stars are actually moving in this galaxy, how this body, that this whole galaxy or rotating galaxy, is in a way a fluid of stars that is responding to the laws of physics in a beautiful way. We can see also how some stars are going with this body, but other stars are having different trajectories. So this is seen from above the plane. This is seen with an angle, and this is seen kind of towards the galactic center, so in the plane. So each of these individual objects contains some crucial information about their birthplace, but also as a collective, they tell us a lot or galaxy. So how does it fit all of that in theory? We know that the Milky Way is a spiral galaxy. We know that the Milky Way, it's one of the millions of spiral galaxies in the universe. So our Milky Way needs to respond to the same laws of physics than every other galaxy in the universe. And we believe that the galaxies form in this initial kind of cloud of mostly dark matter, which started with time. Here there is the time, this is a simulation. This is a theoretical simulation. So as time passed, this dark matter start to clump because of gravity, and inside these clumps of more dark matter is also when the baryons, where the baryonic matter, the matter that we can see, can also clump and then concentrates more gas in the inner part of these clumps of dark matter. And they start to interact and they start to produce stars, and then the galaxies tend to form in these regions in which there is more density. And you now see kind of the stellar content of this, but then you need to imagine that all of that is surrounded and embedded in these dark matter profiles. So the stars, they also evolved, and then they create metal content inside these galaxies. And one can see how constantly these big galaxies are being fed by smaller galaxies that are being accreted into the main galaxies. So galaxies don't evolve in isolation, they evolve in this cosmic web in which they interact through these filaments of dark matter, in which in these filaments of dark matter there is gas, and then there are stars that are being accreted by the bigger galaxies. And this is how these galaxies then evolve and grow. So our galaxy is not different. And now in this context of big data, we can see the motions of the stars, and we can try to identify which of the stars or how the stars have been interacting in this kind of global context in which the Milky Way is not an isolated object. So we can add then more dimensions here. We can add the dimension of the metallicity, which is tracing in a way the evolution of these galaxies. And we can also add the dimension of many more chemical elements. And this is because a very fundamental concept, which is in a way the stellar DNA. So when stars form in these galaxies, here we have a beautiful image taken from ESO, from a star formation region. So there is a lot of gas, there is a lot of stars, and kind of as a cartoon, we have 3 stars that are formed from this cloud, which are formed in a group, and they are all sharing the same composition of this cloud from which they are formed. But the difference in this group is that some of the stars are going to be very massive and others are not going to be very massive. So the difference between the stars in the group is essentially the mass. And as time goes on, the more massive stars very quickly will evolve and they will explode and die. So, and when they die, they will donate into this cloud new material that was processed inside them when they were living. And this new material contains new chemical elements. So then a new generation of stars is formed, which is different than the previous one. That's why here it has a different color. Again, there are stars that are more massive and stars that are less massive than in their generation. And again, the massive stars are going to explode and are going to again pollute this interstellar medium with new chemical elements. But then there are these other stars, the small stars. They live very long. Actually, they live so long that we can find stars that were created at the beginning of galactic history and are still there. So their atmospheres have imprint in a way the chemical composition of the conditions in which that generation had formed. So we can use the chemical elements as a fossil record of galaxy evolution. So this together, the metal content of the stars and the dynamics of the stars allow us to find, for example, these relics of these accretion events that happened in the past. This is one of the biggest discoveries of the Gaia era, which is the last major merger of the Milky Way. There were stars that were found that were contra-rotating in the Milky Way that, with the help of these numerical simulations, and it's been possible to find that these stars belong to another galaxy that was probably as big as the Magellanic Cloud that was accreted into the Milky Way many, many, many years ago, very at the beginning when the galaxy was still in its baby shape. And it offers the possibility to also study how galaxies evolve with super high detail in terms of chemistry and in terms of kind of ages and all sorts of properties, because the stars are with us, they are in our solar neighborhood in a way. So we can really study details of the conditions of the evolution of galaxies that may have happened in the past in another galaxy, but now happen to be here, and they contain that fossil information. Another very interesting result is with continuous is that, as we saw from the simulation, galaxies are constantly accreting galaxies or smaller galaxies. This is another galaxy that is being currently interacting with the Milky Way. That's the Sagittarius galaxy. And I have here another video that shows the effect that is happening right now. So we believe that this galaxy crossed for the first time the Milky Way about 6 gigayears ago. So then passed through the Milky Way, and then it passed again 2 gigayears ago, and then finally has crossed again kind of now. And what we have now is the data kind of like that, right? So we see a bunch of streams from this disrupting galaxy, and we see also the core of this galaxy as well. It is the location that is a bit inconvenient for us because it's very close. We're here, and it's very close to the galactic center, so there is a lot of dust, and we cannot really see that very well. But now with new data, we are able to see that. But we can see the effect when we combine the information of the kinematics of all the stars with the age and the chemistry. We can see how there are these kind of peaks of stars at these ages, which makes us interpret that every time that the Sagittarius passed through the Milky Way, there was some mixing of gas that may have triggered some enhanced star formation in the Milky Way. And what is super cool is that actually this is the time that the sun formed, and this is the time when Sagittarius crossed the solar neighborhood. So it may be that we are product of this interaction between the Milky Way and Sagittarius. So the chemistry then, it's super important. We have learned that with the chemistry we can trace back several events and disentangle different populations. And nowadays, kind of the state of the art as of today is that we have about, we have thousands of high resolution spectra for which we can measure up to 20 or 15 different chemical elements. This is, again, the figure of Gaia in the background. And here, each of these points are the bins and the regions that have been kind of observed by two of the 5 current spectroscopic surveys that are in the game, so to say. So what are these, in this context, what are the challenges? I picked 2 kind of challenges that I see that AI can be of great help, and it is already showing some help in this direction. I wrote this annual review just before the kind of revolution of machine learning in the business. So it's nice because it makes a break between one and the other. But these are kind of lessons of the importance and kind of what we know from the kind of theoretical side and from the classical side, how to derive the stellar abundances. And one of the conclusions of that review is that I'm kind of talking to many colleagues in my field, is that people are super excited about, obviously, machine learning. This is a chemical plot of one of these surveys that shows here metal content, and this is abundance of alpha capture elements, so one kind of abundance. And this is what the survey can do with a classical approach, namely fitting a grid of synthesis to the models. And this is what a neural network would be able to do. So this is the machine learning. It's different and it is better. And of course, the papers say this is super efficient. In a second, one can analyze millions of stars and all the abundances. So everyone is super excited about the prospects of machine learning because we can start identifying also a lot of structure that sometimes is blurred in these classical methods. One can go further and not only do kind of 2 abundances, but one can look at many, many abundances. Again, Gala, this is one of the big surveys that I showed in the previous slide. And these have different elements. And with this machine learning, very precise algorithm, one can start looking at the distribution across the galaxy of different elements. So this is the radius, the distance from the galactic center. We are located at 8 kiloparsec, so we're kind of here. So this is inner part of the galaxy, this is outer part of the galaxy, and this is the height of the plane. So this is going the south galactic pole and the north galactic pole. And one can see the distribution of the different elements. And we can see, for example, that barium is completely different than manganese, and also oxygen is different. So that is telling us something about the kind of the chemical evolution history of the Milky Way. So it's super exciting because we have now very precise abundances thanks to all these methods. But then is the question of the training. If I in order to derive these abundances when it's so far a training set, and this is a nice paper that illustrates a little bit the problem that we're facing, in which if we train the data, this is another survey called LAMOST, if we train the data with GALA G or with ApoG, which is another survey, so there are stars in common and they are derived independently by these two different groups, one and then applies the same technique but just applied on different training sets, of course the result is not as nice as we would hope, right? So there are some systematic differences in some of these elements. So these systematic differences are obviously coming from the systematic differences in the training sets. So what in this paper, for example, what they do is a patch solution, which obviously is super confusing because for each of the elements, they recommend to use the results trained by one or the other kind of training set. And yeah, that should not be a way to go. But it's the only way that we have so far, because we have to understand the sources of the systematic differences. So whether if we are kind of happy, but we are actually sometimes a bit scared, how are we going to really proceed with that? And it is not easy to work on this training set. Then it is not the machine learning solving all our problems. We have to do something for it as well. In the case of this example, the ApoG training set was done fitting a grid of synthetic spectra on red giant stars, so one kind of stars, while GALA was using another method which was doing synthesis on the fly, so not a grid of synthetic spectra, and was kind of mostly developed on dwarf stars, which are different. So that leads to systematic differences. So when people think that we're doing everything model-free, it's not, because it is based on this training set, and the methods are also still not self-learner, but we have to train them. So new methods, kind of developing training sets. Of course, we want to have something that is representative in the entire parameter space, but in astronomy, this is super difficult. Firstly, because we have only good quality around us, and that is biasing ourselves to a certain kind of stars that we know that is different from what is far away, for which we don't have quality data. So it's very difficult to have a training set that is representative in that sense. On the other hand, I find that it's also a bit contradictory, because one of the cool things about astronomy and about kind of having more data is to discover new things that we didn't know that they existed. And somehow it's a bit difficult to have something representative of something we don't know that it exists. And of course, we have always the problem that the stellar spectra are not understood as we would like to, although stellar spectroscopy is one of the most classical domains in astronomy. Stellar spectra are poorly understood in many ways, and that leads to many, many, many systematic differences. For example, this kind of completely different differences in the results between ApoG and GALA. The next thing is, okay, say that we want to scale this, we have to put everything in we can have kind of very precise results, but then they need to be accurate as well. We need to define a scale, because then we want to compare with, for example, this cosmological simulation, which contains all the theory. So the data needs to be properly scaled, it needs to be accurate. There is another very interesting survey called Gaia-ISO, which it's with the telescopes here in Paranal. The other two are not necessarily happening in Chile. And I was working for Gaia-ISO for many years as a postdoc. And Gaia-ISO was a super interesting experiment, very human learning, no machine learning whatsoever. But I think that it contains a treasure for artificial intelligence. So Gaia-ISO observed lots of different stars, all sorts of kinds. And then they invited the entire European community to analyze the spectra. So each of these groups here is a different group. You see Nice, Potsdam, Madrid, this is Belgium. Then we have another one of Belgium. This is Belgium. This is another one in Belgium. This is Sweden, Italy. There are France somewhere. Where is France? This is France, Nice. Nice, I mentioned. So these are different groups that determine abundances and parameters of the same stars. And then we compare them, hoping that they were going to agree and we were going to have the true distribution of uncertainties of the parameters. And it turns out that the results didn't agree at all. And we spent years trying to understand the sources of these differences. It was super difficult to make it agree. The error bars were huge, and that reflects in a way that we really understand very little what is going on with the atmospheres of stars. One of the reasons is that many lines, when you determine the abundance of an element, you can do it from many different spectral lines, and the different lines have different atomic data, they have different response, they have different response to the models. So all of that leads that, for example, this line, these are the same stars, but this line would have this trend, and the other line of the same element would do a completely different trend. So that line is good because that trend is expected from the models, but these two lines are probably having some problems with the atomic information, something with the physics. And this line is probably too weak, and therefore it gets blended with other stronger lines around it. So there is a filtering that needs to be done, and maybe one method can do a very good job with saturation or with modeling the atmosphere in 3 dimensions, but not all the methods react in the same way, and that leads to differences that are big, way too big. And I think that GAISO is an interesting threshold for artificial intelligence because all this information about all these results of people are going to be published very soon in the ASO archives. And I think that it's going to be interesting to see how can we decide, given all these uncertainties, given all these different decisions, what is the true value for the abundances of these stars. So to conclude, the abundances are getting precise, but not very accurate. And achieving accuracy is not a sexy topic. It means calibrations, and it is super difficult to get support, difficult to get funding, difficult to get data, because this is not going to help us directly to discover something, but it is helping us really to put the things in the proper scale. So the second challenge is the dimensions. I've been speaking about chemical elements, a lot of them, but how many of them really matter? So this is a periodic table colored by another way than the typical periodic table from chemistry. This is a new figure that was made by Chiaki Kobayashi, one of the leaders in chemical evolution in 2020. And it shows the increase with time, the increase with time of all these different elements. So some of them increase a lot kind of at the end, others increase very little, others increase more at the beginning, and others more at the end. So each of these elements have a different time scale for being produced in this cycle of star formation and cycle of supernovae explosions. And then the different colors show the different kind of supernovas that are producing these elements. So some of manganese is an element that is mostly produced in supernova type 1a, is one kind of supernova, while sodium is an element that is rather produced in other kind of supernova, they call collapse supernova. And then other elements like barium, for example, or yttrium are produced not in supernova, but through winds of these asymptotic giant branch stars, which are very massive stars by the end of their life. So there is a combination of several processes that happens at also several different time scales that creates these elements. So when we measure a chemical pattern of a star, each of these elements is telling us something different about the processes that were operating in this galaxy for these elements to exist when the star was formed. So that idea make us, in a way, think that we can use the chemical elements as this DNA, and each star or each stellar group that form together have a unique chemical imprint. That is the idea of chemical tagging, that we can use the chemical elements to reconstruct the groups of stars that formed together in the past. Because then the stars have moved from the birthplace. You saw how nicely the stars are kind of traveling in the galaxy. So the stars are then far away from each other. So the only thing that really unites them is the chemical elements. So there are many experiments of clustering algorithms that are trying to reconstruct the stellar groups, which are called stellar clusters. So it's a bit redundant, the terminology. These are all physical stellar clusters. All of them are named. They exist. They are together, still together in the disk. And this work of Casamichela et al. Has measured with very high precision lots of different chemical elements, and has computed some HDB scan clustering algorithm and some kind of dimensional reduction and visualization to see whether she can reconstruct these clusters. And it turns out that here you can see that the stars are not necessarily grouped by their original cluster. You can see that the colors are all a bit spread. So on one hand, that is telling us that the abundances from these different clusters are still too similar among each other to be able to detect clear differences. Current clustering algorithms are not able to separate these groups. People have tried all those that are in the scikit-learn library, and the conclusion is more or less always the same. And then there are other challenges because, like shown in this work here, this shows a cluster, the Hyades, and these are the abundances of individual stars in the Hyades. And one can see, when this is done with very, very high precision, that the abundances are not so homogeneous as we would like. There is a scatter, and this scatter is larger than the uncertainties. So whether a group of stars form at one episode from a cloud and forms an open cluster, whether the stars are chemically homogeneous, they are more than a random star, but they are not perfectly homogeneous. So that adds a level of complexity. Divide the stars in different kind of real groups. Many discussions also have been in trying to understand or to kind of put a number in how many elements really matter. This is an interesting paper done by Yuan Ting that studied the correlations between the different elements in apogee again. And one can see that many elements are correlated, and they are correlated because the way that they are measured are also correlated. So trying to which extent adding more elements will break these correlations, it doesn't necessarily go to the fact that we need to have 15 or 20 chemical elements, but maybe with 7 of them, we already are reaching the kind of chemical dimension in this space. But again, going back to the periodic table, we know from physics and from first principles that these elements are tracing slightly different things. So the question is whether it is on methods to derive abundances, what is limiting our ability to really explore all these dimensions, or it is really that they are more correlated even in the physics, and that there is something in the physics that we need to improve in order to kind of group these chemical elements. And this is important because the future, it's still aiming to provide high resolution spectra and keep deriving as many elements as possible for this kind of businesses. So to conclude in the second challenges, abundances are getting very precise, but they are not enough to disentangle the full periodic table and distinguish the stellar groups. And also inner effects in stars need to be better understood, because some of them add an extra scatter, and this in a way is challenging or first assumption that the stellar DNA could be attributed to the abundances. So what is happening next? In a month's time, there is a huge treasure coming, Gaia DR3. There was an early Gaia DR3 in December 2020, because that was already ready and it was not going to change. And the pandemic didn't allow this also to be published. So they did this EDR3, early data release. But now is the new data release coming in June. And it is coming with so much data. It is coming with 33 million radial velocities. It is coming with spectra of 200 million stars, radial velocity spectra. This is high resolution spectra of a million of stars. So there is a huge expectation in the field of this. People are preparing how are we going to analyze it, how are we going to navigate in this, how are we going to combine this with the data that we already have, how can the new methods really here are going to help us, and what are the key questions that we can answer with this new data that is about to come. That is in a kind of longish, but not so much longish term. We are now involved in the SDSTES-5. SDSTES started in 2000 in the US, and now they have expanded to the Southern Hemisphere. This is us in Las Campanas in Chile. And there is one project for the Milky Way in terms of spectroscopy that is the Milky Way Mapper, that is going to provide in July 2023 millions of high resolution spectra from apogee, for which we can derive all these abundances and make all these beautiful maps. So the future looks full of data, and of course it is super exciting because this is happening just now. So there are exciting times to study our home galaxy, and there are many new challenges that with AI can be tackled, and without AI it's going to be very difficult to tackle. But still, we should never forget our human nature and wonder the sky just because it's so beautiful. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Paula. It's exciting times for astronomy and astrophysics. And I have to say that maybe we have like world news about that also. So I would like to invite Paula to the stage and open the question session to the participant with us here today. All the people connected can ask whatever they want. We have a special chat room, and I see that meanwhile we're waiting for Paula to connect to enter to the stage, the virtual stage. I see that we have questions. Let me see. Paula, how are you?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you very well. I'm very excited as well because I'm waiting for the news about this giant black hole in the middle of our galaxy.
In our galaxy. All
Yeah,
about
that was released. I mean, at this moment, I was waiting for it.
I don't know. I'm here.
Okay.
You have to see
Okay.
the social media, what they say.
I know. Thank you for your presentation, and we have a couple of questions, so maybe we can answer them. Is that okay for you?
Yes.
Okay, let's see. Luis is asking, and I think that you can also see the questions, right? But Luis is saying, what methods have been used to determine this galaxy DNA? Okay, we are waiting for Paula to connect again. We are having some technical issues with her connection, so we can wait. Paula is trying to connect to us right now. As I was saying before, Paula Jofre is an associated professor at the astronomy nucleus of the Universidad Diego Portales. She studied astronomy at the Universidad Católica de Chile and obtained her PhD in natural sciences from the Ludwig Maximilian University and the Max Planck Institute of Astrophysics in Germany. She spent also 7 years as a postdoctoral researcher, first working in the Laboratory of Astrophysics of the University of Bordeaux, in France, and then in the Institute for Astronomy and King's College of the University of Cambridge. Paula Joffre is a world-leading expert in galactic astronomy, as she said, focused on the analysis of stellar spectra to understand the physical processes that shape the Milky Way. She has been selected as one of the 23 ambassadors of the Image of Chile 2021, one of the Time 100 Next by Time in 2019, and one of the 10 scientists to watch by Science News in 2018, and one of the 100 Chilean women leaders by the El Mercurio and Mujeres. Let's see if Paula can get connected again. Yes, I can see you.
I
Can you
was
hear me?
kicked out. I don't know why. Just now.
Okay,
Sorry about it.
now you're back. Do you want me to
yes.
repeat the question, or do you have it?
No.
Okay.
I think that I have it written here. Yeah. So how do?
Okay.
Oh, sorry. The question about how do we measure, determine this galaxy DNA? This is essentially how do we determine the abundances, right?
Mhm.
The chemical elements. So for that, we need to do a spectral analysis. So we have the light of the star. It's kind of being spread in all its frequencies, such that we can measure then how the absorption of the light is done at a different energy of the light, which essentially tells us how the light is interacting with the material in the atmosphere of the star. So then we analyze this absorption and in all this kind of combination of interaction between the light and the material, and this is how we can estimate and determine which are the chemical elements that are embedded in the atmosphere of the star. So this is spectral analysis of stellar spectra, essentially.
Excellent. So let's check another one. Hernan, are you currently applying state-of-the-art methods of ML, machine learning, especially for sequences? It seems that a lot of statistical methods have been applied so far.
Yeah. Actually, this is one of the cool projects that I am excited to collaborate with Inria, is to really see how can we apply methods in this content. So essentially, what people are doing right now is, and we are doing some of these things also, is to apply kind of machine learning algorithm like regression methods or neural networks and these kind of algorithms in a set of data that we know very well. So we can train our algorithms and then we can apply this algorithm in the data that we don't know very well.
Excellent. Pedro Enrique is asking the following. Do we have any signal of the existence of the first stars of our galaxy in today's observations?
We don't know. We cannot. I mean, one of the big questions is that we haven't been able to find any of these very first stars that essentially have no metals. If the metals are produced inside stars, then there must be a generation of first stars that have no metals, but they haven't been found. So there are two reasons for it. One is that we haven't looked enough, right? And the other reason is that they are all dead, that they don't exist anymore. So the second reason is the more popular one, because if there were no metals for the very first stars, it is possible that the stars were more massive, and the more massive stars may have all already died now after the existence of after the beginning of formation of the galaxy. What we can do now is to find the second generations of stars. So stars had formed out of the material of the supernova that generated these first generations of stars. So what we do is to study the chemical imprint of the second generation of star, and then see how that may agree with models that of the first generations of stars after they explode, essentially. So we have no direct observation of first generations of stars in our galaxy, because a couple of weeks ago there was also a paper that showed kind of one of these maybe first stars, but in another galaxy, that was observed now through other techniques.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's go with the second question by Hernan. He first asked about if you are using any machine learning methods. You remember?
Mm-hmm.
So in the part 2, he's asking, and what about quantum computing methods?
I don't know. I haven't read anything in the literature about the need of using quantum computing methods or someone doing that. So maybe there is room for exploring that.
Maybe in the future, yes. Luis, again, can you explain a little more about how galactic simulations works?
Well, that is done. It is kind of all self-consistent in a way that you put all the laws of how we understand how galaxies form in a computer. And initially, you have a distribution of matter in which most of the matter is in dark matter, and then you let gravity do its business, essentially. So because this initial distribution of matter is not completely homogeneous, the more dense part are going to be more affected by gravity and they will start collapsing. And once you have achieved a critical mass, then you can start forming stars by the kind of laws of star formation. And then you start forming stars. And then you let the stars evolve thanks to the theory of stellar evolution. And depending on the mass of the stars, they may explode and they may do all sorts of things by the end of their life. You have to incorporate the theory of nucleosynthesis inside to see which of the elements are produced. And then you let these stars explode. So the material goes back into the other gas, it gets mixed, and then you keep going like that over and over, essentially, in kind of very first principles. But then you have to put all these parameters and put all these equations in these simulations. So they are very heavy. You need a couple of months in order to make one of these simulations work, and you need big computers to do this.
Paula, we have a question from Catherine, and she's asking about the interaction phenomenon that occurs between our galaxy and the Sagittarius galaxy. Is it common that this happens in the rest of the galaxies? Could another galaxy interact with our galaxy? Does it have any impact?
Yeah, I mean, galaxies are in constant interaction. It is very common to have mergers and interactions of galaxies. And what we're seeing is actually that our galaxy is doing exactly what other galaxies are doing, which is interacting. We have been kind of lucky in the sense that we have, or I don't know if lucky actually, but we have had it is slightly special that given the size of our galaxy, we have been interacting with galaxies that are relatively small. And the luck comes in the fact that because of the interactions with rather small galaxies or dwarf galaxies, the beautiful structure of the spirals in our galaxy remains after one of these merging episodes. Because if you put two galaxies that are too large, that are as large as the Milky Way, then the Milky Way would completely destroy itself. All its beautiful spiral pattern and all the gas will be completely destroyed in a way, so you couldn't be forming more stars. So in that sense, we are kind of lucky. So if at some point the Milky Way is going to collide with the Andromeda galaxy, which is as big as the Milky Way, and then that will be the end for the disks of both galaxies. But this is how spiral galaxies evolve in the universe. So what is happening to our galaxy is kind of what happens with many galaxies in the universe. And that is the cool thing, right? That we believe that we are living and we are victims of the same laws of physics than in the rest of the universe, which means that but we are lucky that we can have here a lot of detail about the Milky Way, which is something we cannot have in other galaxies because they are too far away.
Paula, I think we don't have any more questions, but only if you can comment. I know that that is not the subject here, but I'm a journalist, I'm a science journalist, so I'm pretty excited because it's happening right now, the transmission from ESO and other this new Horizon event. You know more than me about this information, and they are talking about this new image about Sagittarius A. So can you, I don't know, tell us a little
I
bit. What
haven't
do you
seen it,
think about?
so I
I
am
know
super
that you haven't seen
curious,
it,
and I
but
don't know what
what
to
is the
comment.
what is the importance about knowing and having this first image about a black hole in the middle of the Milky Way? Because you already that was like theoretical, right?
Well, it wasn't theoretical. We could see the evidence of the presence of the black hole through different observables, like the motions of the stars and the behavior of some things in the center of the galaxy. So theoretical it wasn't. I haven't seen the image, so I'm super curious. I saw the other image of the other galaxy a couple of years ago, and it is impressive. And I think that one of the impressive things about it is kind of that we can do that now. That, working together, all the nations working together in such a big fundamental challenge and push to the borders of technology and be able to do this is what I find amazing. That what we can do as humankind when we collaborate. That I think that is a takeaway message. And, like we cannot help or curiosity, right? We want to see how it looks like, and we're going to do everything that is in our power and in our creativity, and we're going to collaborate, and we're going to push to the limit what we can do until we do it, and we're doing it. And I think that this is kind of it in a way it shows how great we can be as humankind if we want to.
Yes, you're totally right. Thank you for sharing your knowledge. Thank you for sharing your presentation also in this scientific day. Thank you very much, Paula.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks for the invitation.
Have a nice one.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Well, thank you, Paula, and thank you everyone for also giving us your questions. So I would like to remind you that the participants to read the Paula Joffre interview, as well as the interview of the rest of the keynote speakers of previous days, Pablo Marquet, Jacques Saint-Marie, and Mark Schunauer. These are 4 amazing interviews that all 4 gave to the Journées Scientifiques Inria, Chile. You can find them on the Gazette in our website, journesscientifique2022.inria.cl. Also, the videos of these talks will be available on your YouTube channel and also our website. Now, we leave you with the scientific session, Models and Numerical Methods for Complex Systems, shared by Mostafa Adimi. Mostafa is a senior researcher, director of research, head of Dracula team in Inria, Lyon. It's well said, yes. During the session, we will be receiving questions through the question chat. Mostafa, I welcome you to the virtual stage. Well, we are waiting for Mustafa to get connected. He's getting connected with us to give us his presentation, and we want to remind you that we have Instagram and we have a Twitter account, also in LinkedIn. It's Inria Chile. If you want to do any comments about the Journées Scientifiques 2022, please feel free to do it. And also we have the chat available, the open chat. You can do also comments, any comments that you want. And also you can put all the questions here. Let me see. Okay, we are waiting for Mostafa Adimi. Mostafa, whenever you're ready, please connect with us so you can share your presentation in this Journées Scientifiques by Inria, Chile. Okay, we're waiting for Mostafa right now. Maybe the production team can tell me. He's, I think he's getting connected. So let's see. Yes. Mustafa, how are you?
Yeah, thank you very much. I am fine, thank you. It took some time because when you receive this notification, you have to wait 30 seconds before to be connected. Okay, Don't thank worry, you very much. I will present you the next 3 presentations. I think the first and second one are in the framework of what we call Math MSUD program. I think we will start immediately. I don't know if Daniel is here, if he's connected for his first presentation. It's the name of the project is Tominet, and it's about topological methods and autonomous dynamics for delay differential equation. Maybe I can give you some information about this program. The project focus on open problems on no autonomous systems of differential delay equations with applications to the life science phenomena. And the main results correspond to models arising from hematopoiesis, which is the process that leads to the production and the regulation of blood cells in the bone marrow, and also microbial population dynamics in chemostat, and a population that moves between coupled patches. The speaker is Daniel Sepulveda.
First of all, I want to thank Inria Chile for organizing Journées Scientifiques and inviting us to participate in it. I will talk about the Madame Sud project, topological methods, and non-autonomous dynamics for delay differential equation. This talk considers the following stage. Introduction. Here, I will present the team that develops the project, the institutions that are articulate through it, and the general goal of the project. Application to the life science. The work developed by the team in different models will be presented. We will finish presenting some results and complementary activity of the project. The scientific coordinators are Pablo Amster from Departamento de Matemática of Universidad de Buenos Aires. He is the international coordinator of the project. Pierluigi Benevieri from Instituto de Matemática y Statistica of Universidad de Sao Paulo. He is the national coordinator for Brazil. Daniel Sepúlveda from Departamento de Matemática of Universidad Tecnológica Metropolitana. I am the national coordinator for Chile. The coordinators for France are Frédéric Massin from L2S Central Supelec, Inria Saclay, and Mostafa Adimi from Inria Ron Alps. Other participating institutions are Universidad Nacional del Centro de la Provincia de Buenos Aires, Universidad Federal de Minas Gerais, and Universidad de Chile. The general goal of this project addresses open problems about non-autonomous system of delay differential equation, modeling phenomena from life science, particularly a metapopulation version of the Nicholson equation, and also model of microbial population in a stirred chemostat. Nevertheless, the ideas and method could be certainly extended in several ways. The team have been studied models related to hematopoietic stem cell dynamics, microbial population in a chemostat, and metapopulation moving between coupled patches. Recently, Mustafa Adimi, Pablo Amster, and Julian Epstein studied a differential difference system that models the dynamics of a population of hematopoietic stem cell. The authors focus on a population of hematopoietic stem cells and their regulatory factors at the cell cycle level. The cell cycles consist of two main phases, the quiescent phase and the proliferating phase. The hematopoietic cell cycle can be described by means of the following scheme. The proliferation phase takes tau units of time. Once the proliferation phase ends, a proportion of 2k of the new cells enter again to this phase, while the rest of the cells enter to the quiescent phase. If we define P, T, A, and R, T, A as the densities of the proliferating and quiescent cells at time t and HA, respectively, then we obtain the following system of partial differential equation. To reduce the above periodic system of partial differential equation to a differential difference system, is necessary to define the variable Q, which represents the total population of quiescent cells. By integrating the system of partial differential equation over dH using the characteristic method and the boundary condition, the author obtained the following system of periodic differential difference equation. By using topological degree techniques and fixed point method, the authors determined sufficient conditions for the existence of at least one positive d-periodic solution. Microbial population model within a chemostat are a central theme within this project. Here you can see three works that we have been developing. I will focus on the first one. Together with Pablo Amster and Gonzalo Robledo, we have considered a non-autonomous system of difference equations that describe the dynamics of a population with size structure and time-varying input of substrate. The model considers, on the one hand, the dynamics of the bioreactor, where an amount of liquid medium is entering to the container. Inside the vessel, the microbial population consumes the nutrients of the environment, and in turn, the same amount of liquid leaves the container. On the other hand, microorganisms increase in size as they develop. Once they have doubled their original size, they can divide into cells of the same size. We assume that a ratio P of the biomass of a size class increases its size by a factor m, allowing it to move to the next class. All this dynamics is affected by the output of cells with dilution rate E. From the above scheme arises the system of difference equation here in equation 1, where capital S is the density of substrate inside the vessel, and X is a vector whose entries are the biomass density in each size class. Bolt 1 is a vector whose entries are all equal to 1. Capital S0 is a positive sequence, and A is a matrix given by equation 2. Note that the ratio P depends on the uptake function F. Firstly, we studied the case where capital S0 is a positive bounded sequence. We use the Paul's exponent to find a threshold providing sufficient condition for washout or the uniform persistence of the total biomass. For the uniform persistence, we also use a criteria developed by Salciano. Secondly, we consider the case where capital S0 is a positive omega periodic sequence, and we prove the existence and attractiveness of a positive omega periodic solution by using Poincaré operator techniques, skew product semiflow, the weak ergodic theorem, and Floquet theory. Another family of models that we have focused on are metapopulation models with diffusion between pages, particularly those whose dynamics in each page are inspired by Nicholson-Blows-Flies model. Here I detail two works developed by the team. A representation of a population with coupled patches is given by the figure of the frame. In the patch I, the population dynamics is rallied by the differential equation derivative of xi equal to gi of xi. Therefore, the metapopulation model is given by the following system of differential equations. Together with Gustavo Sandon, we studied a Nicholson-type system with nonlinear mortality and linear harvesting, given by equation 3. We obtained sufficient conditions for the existence of at least one positive omega periodic solution by using a coincident degree theorem, and also local exponential stability of the periodic solution. Here we use the Lyapunov theory. On the other hand, Pablo Amster and Melanie Bondoresky studied the more general system of delay differential equation given by equation 4. The author determined sufficient condition for the uniform persistence of the system 4. They use a guiding function for this result. Also, they find sufficient condition for the existence of at least one positive omega periodic solution by using topological degree techniques and fixed point method, and sufficient condition for the global attractiveness of the zero solution is obtained by using a guiding function. Some complementary results obtained by members of the team are the following. The stability, existence, and non-existence of p-periodic solution of nonlinear delayed differential equation with phi Laplacian by Pablo Amster, Dionisio da los Santos, and Mariel Cuna, and also on an affinity principle by Krasnodębski, by Pablo Amster and Julian Epstein. Within the framework of the MathAmSud project, a workshop on topological methods and non-autonomous dynamics for delayed differential equation is being organized, which will be held in January 2023 in Santiago de Chile. Finally, I would like to thank to the Agencia Nacional de Investigación y Desarrollo and MathAmSud project for the fund provided that allowed the development of this project. Also, I want to thank to the organizing committee. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Daniel. There is a chat for questions on the right of the screen. Please put questions there. And we will pass to the second presentation, is also in the framework of project from MAT MSUD program. And this project is the name, his name is Eolis, and it will be presented by Manuel Solano, and the title is Efficient Offline Numerical Strategies for Multi-Query Problems.
In this presentation, I will talk about one of the projects that we have in collaboration with colleagues in France and Brazil and in Chile, about basically these efficient offline numerical strategies for multi-query problems, EOLIS. So I'm gonna just briefly describe what we plan to do for this project and what are our main motivation. So let me first, I'm going to introduce the team's member, and then talk about a little bit about our research, and finally end with some conclusions. So from the Inria side, so this is the part of Inria located on Sofia Antipolis. Actually, the international coordinator of the project is Teofil, and he's kind of the main head of the project. And there are also some senior and junior researchers. They're, as I said, at Inria. The group is kind of big. We also involve some grad students. Some of the names there are active on the project. Other, for example, students, some that gets, let's say, a postdoc position in another place. They are not longer in the project, but I just put all the names that somehow were involved in these first years of the project. From Brazil, we collaborated with the LNCC, the National Laboratory of Scientific Computing, and the Brazilian coordinator is Frederic Valentin, and also we have researchers, postdocs, and grad students also. And finally, from the Chilean side, this is myself, the national coordinator. We have also University of Concepcion, and also another junior researcher, also a university here in the city of Concepcion, but it's a different university, the Catholic University of Concepcion. So this is, as I said, this is the kind of a big group on the project, and there are interaction between people, between INRIA, LNCC, and Concepcion in different topics. So basically, I'm going to summarize here three main research lines. The entire goal of the project is to design, implement, and analyze a novel family of finite element schemes for multi-query PDE problems with applications to inverse problems, optimal design, and uncertainty quantification. So basically, we work in the area of numerical analysis. So we want to at the end, we want to simulate the solution of certain partial differential equations. And simulations are performed in computer. And we want to do that as efficient as possible, thinking on multi-query problems. So multi-query PDE problems, basically we mean a PDE where, for example, with coefficients that depends on a range of parameters, for example, as happens on inverse problems. So this is the entire, I mean, the global objective of our study. Of course, we want to provide the mathematical theory that supports our numerical skills. So let me summarize three research lines. The first one is robust adaptive algorithms. So basically, what we mean by this is, so let's say when we have a finite element methods, we have typically a triangulation of the domain of interest, and we want to solve the PDE on that domain. So you can have several type of methods: finite elements, discontinuous Galerkin method, hybridized method, multi-scale method, and finite volume, etc. In particular, we work in finite element or discontinuous Galerkin methods, and also multi-scale problem method. So when you have, let's say, your finite element mesh, there are some errors. By error, I mean the solution we want to have compared with our approximation. So this is on the left. You can see the error that your finite element method is producing, basically. And this is the true error. The true error means the exact solution of the PDE minus the approximation, and that measure in some particular norm, usually some energy type of norm. But we want to put the effort on the mesh just on the places where the errors are big. However, we don't know the exact errors because, of course, we don't know the exact solution. So somehow we need to estimate the error by quantities that we can compute. So this is called error estimation. So on the right, you can see an estimation of the error. This is not the I'm sorry. On the right is the true error. On the left is the estimated error. I said it in the other way around. So on the left is the estimation of the error, and on the right is the actual error. And you can see they are kind of very close. If I see they are almost identical. Then if I can zoom in, for example, I can detect a small difference. So, but the key is we want to get a computable estimation of the error. And we also want to, for this particular case, high order methods. Let's say with approximation with polynomial spaces with a higher degree. We also consider adaptivity in the H sense and P sense. H sense means according to the error estimator, refine the mesh where it's needed. I mean, where the errors are big. Or P adaptivity means not refine the mesh, but increase the polynomial degree of the approximation spaces. So with these two possible adaptivities, you can get a better, a more accurate solution of the problem. And most importantly, we want to get guarantee bounds. That means typically when you have an error estimator, this error estimator bounds the error times a constant. And usually we don't have control on that constant. So guaranteed bounds means, okay, maybe we can get rid of the constant and just have a constants equal to 1. So basically the error is bounded by 1 times the error estimator. So that's our goal. So specific goal, as I said, robust error control, interplay between mesh refinement and optimization algorithms. So especially when you do optimization algorithms, you do it by an iterative process. So in every step, you have to solve a problem to optimize the algorithm and the refinement process, so they can interplay together. Reusability. So how can we minimize the number of adaptive steps in a multi-query context? So how much we can recycle, let's say, to speed up all the online process. The second problem is the design of basically solar cells. So solar cells, roughly speaking, here you can see a picture of a solar panel, and those panels are kind of infinitely long. So there are many types of configuration of solar cells. In particular, we consider two types of configurations. The first type is called one-dimensional grating. So grating is this kind of corrugation in the surface of the metal. So here on the bottom, there is a metal. And on top, there are several layers of different type of materials. The second configuration are two-dimensional gratings. They are basically two-dimensional blocks, arrays of blocks, basically, blocks made of metal. So this is a picture of the basic geometry of a one-dimensional grating. This is a cross section. So as I said, you have metal, we have some corrugations, and we have several layers. So the model are basically Maxwell equations on heterogeneous media, because these media are different materials. So that means the electric permittivity is different in each layer, let's say. So it's an heterogeneous media. The other difficulty is the electric permittivity. Electric permittivity is complex value. Negative, and the imaginary part is positive. And in the previous picture, you saw that the corrugations are periodic, and the incident light coming from the sun is quasi-periodic. Quasi-periodic means is periodic up to a factor. So at the end, the solution of the PD is also quasi-periodic. So that means on the left, the solution is equal to the right times a factor. That's quasi-periodicity. And we also have to deal with radiation conditions. These conditions are outgoing propagation towards the infinity. So our specific goals: analyze numerical methods for heterogeneous medium in Maxwell and Helmholtz equations. Of course, propose adaptive schemes to efficiently refine the mesh or the discretization. And also, we are very interested in this topological optimization or also shape optimization. So is it possible to find an optimal distribution, let's say, of the electric permittivities in such a way that it maximizes the light absorption? So we are trying just doing this topological optimization to see where let's say, what is the metal, how's the interface between the metal and the above layers. So that's kind of what we are doing. And finally, the other research line, multi-scale methods, in particular for waves and fluids. Waves, because we are interested in this solar cell optimization. And so what's the motivation? So basically, when you have a finite element discretization, you have a mesh. Let's think of triangles. And it happens that if the domain has some features or the PDE or the coefficients of the PDE have some multi-scale features, for example, these features are too small compared with the triangles, then one option is take a very small triangle, but in order to resolve this small feature. However, taking very small triangles takes a lot of computational time. So it's almost impossible to think about that. But there is this multi-scale method that basically considers the coarse mesh, and on the coarse mesh, you compute on each element a particular basis functions, and those basis functions are basically kind of satisfying the PDE locally. So with those particular basis functions, you are able to capture the multi-scale feature of the PDE. So that's the code. I mean, the motivation. So basically, the heavy computation, you do it on a coarse mesh, and let's say the less heavy computation, you can do it in parallel, element by element, by computing the local basis function. So the goal is to extend this multi-scale hybrid mixed method, MHM, to deal with multi-query problems. In particular, apply this to the solar cell problem that I described a few minutes ago. And also as a measure, this is our Maxwell equation in heterogeneous medium. So with quasi-periodic boundary condition, which also is a feature. And the outgoing, the propagation waves, I mean the outgoing transmission condition, we have to, I mean, we model that by PML, perfectly matched layers, because we want to have a boundary domain. So we put a PML on top and on the bottom to artificially absorb the waves, so we can manage that. I mean, solve our scheme on a boundary domain. So also an error analysis in terms of this wrinkle size. The wrinkle size are basically these corrugations. So these corrugations, how they are very important from the physical point of view, because this corrugation generate an enhancement of the electric field. But from the mathematical point of view, it's very difficult to handle because there are some singularities here in the corner. So we need to do a proper analysis. This is actually work. This MHM methods applied to this problem is a collaboration in a thesis project of Inria and Brazil. For fluid, this MHM method has been studied during the last, let's say, 5 years. So they are well studied. So basically, you see a coarse mesh, and you have, for example, an equation with permeability, and the permeability presents multi-scale feature. So, for example, the blue regions, the scale is 10 to the minus 3, and on the red region, the scale is 10 to the plus 3. So the difference of order magnitude is 1 million. So of course we cannot think of putting elements that, let's say, that can cover this difference of 1 million scale of magnitude. So in concept, so as the multi-scale method, it does, as I said a few minutes ago, just take the coarse mesh and compute a special basis function on this coarse mesh. And these special basis functions are able to capture the multi-scale feature without the need of refining this mesh. So this is, as I said, has been well studied for fluid flow. So the idea is to adapt this to multi-query cases and perform an a priori error analysis. And this has been also done some a posteriori error estimates in this work by one of the members of the teams of the team. And there is actually there is a preliminary result also by Theophile here. You can have recently been published there. So some conclusions. So we want to deal with these parameterized PDEs. So instead of focusing in one particular PDE, we want to consider to reduce the computational cost to solve a set of PDEs at once. So for that, we improve the computational cost by adaptivity, by multi-scale modeling, and preconditioning. And the applications, as I said, are inverse problems, optimal design of solar cells, and on wave problems and fluid flow equations. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Manuel, for this nice presentation. And we will move to the last presentation of this session. It will be given by Paula Goatin. She's researcher director at Inria, Centre of Université Côte d'Azur in France. And she will talk about efficient numerical schemes for no-local transport phenomena and no-local conservation laws for engineering, biological, and epidemiological applications, theory, and numerous. She will present the results obtained in the framework of associate team NOLOCO regarding the numerical approximation of no-local conservation laws.
Okay, good morning, everybody. With this talk, I would like to give you an overview of the activity of the NOLOCO Inria associated team with the Inria Chile. And this associated team was running from 2018 to up to now, since it was prolonged to the COVID restriction, and is focused on the construction of efficient numerical scheme for non-local transport phenomena. So this associated team involved my Inria team at Sophia Antipolis in the south of France, so which is called AQMES, and University of Versailles on the French side. And on the Chilean side, there was the participation of the University of Bio and the University of Concepcion. In particular, the team was animated by Luis Miguel Vilada from University of Bio and myself, and saw the participation of several PhD and postdoc students. We also had some funding from Fondesit Chile to complete our activity during these years. The output of this collaboration, which actually started before the associated team, is up to now about 10 joint publications on international mathematical journals. We also had several exchange visits between France and Chile. In particular, several students could visit the partner team. And we also contributed to the organization of a mini symposium to the WANA-PD 2019 conference that was held in Concepcion. So the objective of our research is the design of a efficient numerical method to compute approximate solution of a class of conservation law consisting in partial differential equation of this kind, in which we have the partial derivative of the unknown function plus the space divergence of the flux function, and which is the specificity of our studies, the flux function here depends on an integral evaluation of the unknown. In particular, this integral evaluation will be under the form of a convolution product. This, of course, poses several challenges, both from the analytical and the numerical point of view, and the work of this team mainly concentrated on the numerical aspects. Indeed, the presence of a convolution product and therefore an integral evaluation of the unknown at each time step is very costly from the computational point of view. Therefore, this makes prohibitive to reduce the mesh size, and instead require the development of a high-order numerical schemes. So we tackle this problem from the simplest situation of a scalar conservation in one space dimension. And we increased then the difficulties in considering systems in one space dimension, and finally, scalar equation in multi-space dimension. Here I would like also to point out that this type of equation appear in several applications, like the study of sedimentation, granular flow, traffic flow, crowd dynamics, supply chain, and conveyor belts. So these models are really widely spread in the applied mathematical community. So the first result we obtained concerned this type of scalar conservation law in one space dimension. So here the variable x is belongs to R. And this type of equation arises in the traffic flow and sedimentation modeling. In particular, in traffic flow, the convolution kernel is not symmetric, and can be not symmetric and discontinuous, which is even more demanding. So we developed this continuous Galerkin scheme and finite volume Wino schemes to obtain high order approximation with using a quadratic polynomial reconstruction for the evaluation of the convolution terms. So as a first example, I show you these results. So in particular, this is the evolution at time 1 of the initial datum, a piecewise constant initial datum, which consists of a sort of shock wave on the left and of a rarefaction followed by a jump on the right. And we notice how the high order scheme developed by the team are able to capture the shock discontinuity. So on the right, you can see a zoom of this region. And you can also observe how the discontinuous Galerkin schemes are more precise compared to the corresponding finite volume high order scheme, but this at the price of a much restrictive here you can see another example of a solution corresponding to an oscillating initial datum with the periodic boundary condition, in which we compare the resolution of the high order schemes compared to the first order Lax-Friedrich scheme that you can see in green. So you can see how both discontinuous Galerkin and the finite volume schemes are able to capture the peaks of the solution sharply without smoothing out the waves. So these results were published in 2018 and 2020. We can now move to an application to systems in one space dimension. So here we consider this kind of a system of equation consisting of a conservation law for so this model appears in multi-class traffic flow modeling. So we are assuming that we have different classes of vehicle which are characterized by their speed function and their look ahead distance. And for each conservation law are coupled in the speed term, which depend on the sum of all the density, so on the total traffic density. For this kind of problem, we instead of proposing a high order finite volume scheme, we propose to split the non-local conservation law into two different equations, getting a Lagrangian step and a remap step. So discretizing this step with the corresponding numerical scheme and suitably choosing the fluxes at the interface, we are able to obtain a conservative scheme which is less diffusive than the usual first order scheme and can capture properly the discontinuities. So here is an example of the approximate solution obtained with the Lagrangian remap scheme. So the first three curves compared to the first order Godunov in blue and the second order Godunov in green. In particular, we see that the resolution obtained by the Lagrangian remap scheme is close to the second order Godunov scheme, close to the discontinuities. To conclude this overview, we also consider the equation in multi-space dimension. So here now the space variable varies in R2, and the conservation law is intended to describe crowd dynamics in a closed space. In particular, the speed vector consists of two components. One component, mu of x, is the desired direction of motion of pedestrian, and the non-local term I of rho is the deviation from the desired speed due to the presence of other pedestrians surrounding the considered point. So we assume that pedestrians target, for example, the exit, but deviate from their path if they meet other pedestrians, so if there is a gradient of the density. Moreover, to take properly into account the possible presence of walls and obstacles at the boundaries of the domain in which the crowd moves, which poses a problem due to the presence of the of the convolution kernel, whose domain could exit the domain where the pedestrian move. We set a high density value inside the obstacle and the wall, which makes the pedestrian to move away from that directs the pedestrian away from the obstacle and the walls. And we can observe, for example, in this example of a room evacuation. So we have a crowd in a room which exits on by a door on the right here. And we see the different behavior if in the presence of, if some obstacles are present near the door. So on the left column, we have the evolution of the density without obstacle. On the middle column, we have this obstacle beside the door. And on the third column, we have an obstacle in front of the door. And in particular, we can observe that the evacuation runs much faster in the last case, showing that suitably placing an obstacle can help in room evacuation. Another, we also studied the impact of different kernel orientation, meaning that we assume that the pedestrian do not react in a symmetric way to all the pedestrians around them, but may focus their attention in a certain direction that could, for example, be the direction of motion. So, and in this example, we show the behavior on the left with a downstream convolution kernel. So people are looking forward and reacting to what they see in front of them. And on the right to what happens if they would look behind and movement. So we also worked on other subjects. In particular, we had some result in sensitivity analysis for hyperbolic PD system with involving discontinuous solution. And also we developed numerical schema for traffic model in which the flux is discontinuous in the density function, so in the unknown. And more information on the team webpage. We are now pursuing our activity also with the help of a recently approved MATAMSUD project, which will focus not only on non-local conservation law applied to traffic, but also to application to biology and epidemiology. This project involves participants from Chile, Colombia, and again France, so Inria and the University of Versailles. And as a starting point, we already started a PhD co-direction of a student from University of Concepcion. So here, this is the end of my talk. I thank you for your attention, and I'm ready to take your question.
Thank you very much, Paula, for this nice presentation. And I would like also to thank all the speakers of this session. Thank you very much.
Yes.
Ah, okay, it's in the top.
Yeah.
Yes. maybe I will read. Thank you, Manuel, for your talk. The question maybe not thinking in the application, how do the results change if the geometry of the solar panels is different?
So I don't know exactly what you mean by different. So let's say basically depending on the solar panel configuration, you get a different, let's say, a different behavior of the electromagnetic field. So one of the motivation is of our project is actually to see, let's say, basically you have an interface between the metal and the electric, I suppose. So basically, how can we get an optimal shape of the interface in such a way that the intensity of the electric field is large. So I don't know if that answers your question, but basically the configuration of a solar cell actually has an effect on the behavior of the electric field.
Yes. Okay, thank you. Another question from Hugo to Manuel also. You mentioned singularities in the bottom part of the panel. Are they avoided in the numerical schemes?
Actually, no, because the singularities are, I mean, as I said, are important from the physical point of view, because there on the corners you have a very, very high intensity of the electric field. So of course we want to have that, because if you have a large intensity of the electric field, you will get more energy basically. So, and also that comes into the PDE. So in the PDE, you have the singularity, so you cannot avoid that. And then when you use numerical method, you cannot avoid the singularity. So basically what you can do is, for example, refine the mesh near the singularity. So you get a lot of, to put your computational efforts in order to resolve the singularity.
Okay. I think there are two questions for Paula.
Yeah,
the first one, yes,
me.
is about Lax-Wondorf scheme. Also a good scheme for, this is question for the 1D system.
Yeah, actually, we didn't thought about that. I guess that the problem is that our flux function has these integral evaluations. It's like dealing with a space-dependent flux function, and there is there's a problem.
No.
I have another presentation coming on.
Yes, but it disappeared after. It's okay. Yeah, I think it was a mistake. You can continue. Yes, Paula.
Should I go on? Because
yes.
it's harder to speak with someone speaking at the same time. So basically, it's hard to deal with the Jacobian matrix in this case of the flux. So we know we didn't look at that, and I don't think it's suitable.
Yeah. Okay.
And concerning the second question about the geometry of the obstacle in the pedestrian model, I guess. Yeah. So we are using a Cartesian grid. So we are just limited by the grid we use, of course. So if the obstacles are round, for example, they should be approximated. But so that's the only restriction, depending on the mesh.
Okay, thank you. I think there is no other questions, and thank you very much for your presentation.
Mustafa, can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Well, hi to everyone. Hello to everyone here. Thank you for this panel. And also, this is the last time, the last moment. If you want to send any questions, we have Paola, we have Daniel, we have Manuel here, we have Mustafa here. So this is the time. If you don't have more questions, we can move on. So let's see. We don't have more questions, so we can move on. Thank you to everyone. Huh?
Goodbye.
Thank you. Bye.
Have a nice day. Thank you,
Bye.
Mustafa, for chairing
Thank
this
you.
session.
Thank you very much.
And
Daniel.
also, thank you for your presentations, Daniel Sepulveda, Owen Ninger, Manuel Solano, and Paola Goatin. Thank you so much. Now it's time for a coffee break. Yes, we invite you to meet at Gather Town. Remember, the link to join this interactive session is being shared in the chat. Please pay attention to this. It is an interactive space for networking. Please join us there so we can exchange and also meet some of the interns who were enrolled in the mobility program coordinated by Inria Chile. Who are these people? Well, these are Chilean interns from Chilean universities that have taken part in research internships at Inria centers in France. Also, remember that to participate in the next session, you'll need to be registered. So, if you haven't registered yet, you can enter on our website, journesscientifique.inria.cl. For the next part, we will have a very interesting roundtable on open science shared by the CEO of Inria Chile, Nayat Sanchez P. Well, finally, if you want to interact with us using social networks, you can do it by tagging us on LinkedIn, on Twitter as Inria Chile. See you back in 15 minutes.